Well, this is the Tuesday of Holy Week, and the events that happen today will really set the stage for the remainder of the week. That is the crucifixion and ultimately the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So this is, of course, the day following the cleansing of the temple, and on that day, Jesus returned to the temple, where the religious authorities challenged his authority. And so Jesus spends much time teaching in parables and with much authority, ironically. Truth be told, Jesus has all authority, and he makes it clear on that Tuesday in his teaching. He demonstrated it on Monday with his actions and demonstrates it Tuesday with his words in his teaching. Now, towards the end of his teaching in the temple, Jesus presents what's called the 7 woes to the Pharisees. He pulls no punches in laying out the intentions and the hypocrisy of those religious leaders. And right before that, though, Jesus speaks to the disciples and to the crowds that were there, speaking about the Pharisees and the scribes. So read with me in Matthew 23, verses 1 through 7. And this is out of the CSB, and they say this: Then Jesus spoke to the crowds and to his disciples. The scribes and the Pharisees are seated in the chair of Moses. Therefore do whatever they tell you and observe it, but don't do what they do, because they don't practice what they teach. They tie up heavy loads that are hard to carry and put them on people's shoulders, but they themselves aren't willing to lift a finger to move them. They do everything to be seen by others. They enlarge their phylacteries and lengthen their tassels. They love the place of honor at banquets, the front seats in the synagogues, greetings in the marketplaces, and to be called rabbi by people. So in these verses, Jesus begins to lay into the Pharisees, though to the crowd and the disciples. He says that they are legalistic, hypocritical, and ultimately prideful. You see these descriptions that they don't follow the law, and yet they place the heavy burden of the law upon others, and how they love the place of honor, how they love to be greeted as rabbi. I believe that these people looked really put together from the outside, but they were absolutely under the wrath of God. They were sinners. They were lost. And so Jesus presents who these scribes and Pharisees are, that they aren't to be mirrored, they aren't to be looked at as examples in a positive way. And then Jesus switches gears and he calls for the crowds and his disciples to a different way of living. Read with me Matthew 23, verses 8 through 12. But you are not to be called rabbi, because you have one teacher, and you are all brothers and sisters. Do not call anyone on earth your father, because you have one Father who is in heaven. You are not to be called instructors either, because you have one instructor, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be your servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. Jesus urges the people to humble themselves under the mighty hand of God and before one another. So on the one hand, you had this pride and legalism and hypocrisy from the religious leaders of that day. And on the other hand, you have the humility, the lowliness that Jesus is calling his followers to. Humility as a result of knowing God. So church, here's what I'd like for us to consider today as we think about the Pharisees and where they were wrong. Are you trying to look put together spiritually while on the inside you're hurting and hungry for more? I believe that that's where the scribes and the Pharisees are. They just didn't know it, right? They were trying to look put together, but they just didn't know how bad off that they were. And they wouldn't come to know that. The solution is not legalism. It's not works. It's not trying harder. It's not getting degrees. It's not seeking the approval of man. No, these are all the things that the Pharisees were doing. The solution that Jesus preaches here is to stop trying so hard and sit at the feet of the teacher, Jesus. Let his word richly dwell within you, and let him satiate your hunger, and let the grace of God in you have its way. If you're trying and striving and working to look put together spiritually, you're doing it in vain. Jesus has already done the work. Run to him. That's not a message that the Pharisees would like to hear. And Jesus wouldn't stop there. Again, he'd go on to present his 7 woes to them. He'd go on to directly challenge them in that way. And naturally, that doesn't sit well with them. This is out of Mark 14, verses 1 and 2. It was 2 days before the Passover and the festival of unleavened bread. The chief priests and the scribes were looking for a cunning way to arrest Jesus and kill him. Not during the festival, they said, so that there won't be a riot among the people. Jesus has come into Jerusalem as king, and he's displayed authority in both action and in teaching. And the tensions are rising. The plot is thickening. Plans are being made to get rid of Jesus. But praise the Lord, Sunday is coming.